And before I start, could I request everybody to go do like a 15-second introduction, maybe starting from that corner.
Hi, I'm Vedanarayanan. I head marketing at Simplilearn. We happen to be one of the world's largest online certification companies for working professionals.
Hi, my name is Adil Shetty. I'm the CEO at bankbazaar.com. We're a financial services marketplace that helps people access the right financial products instantly.
Hi, my name is Ninad Raval, and I head product and design at Flock. Flock is a messaging app that we're building for teams to work together. It's a complete collaborative sort of suite of products that we offer for people to use at workplace.
Hi, I'm Abhishek Narayan, and I work at Microsoft as a technical evangelist. So I work with startups, helping them build solutions, scalable solutions with the cloud.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kavita. I head a digital agency out of Singapore called Web Spiders. I also mentor a few startups in the mobile space. So today we're going to be talking about app engagement. When we started discussing in our panel, the question that came up was, earlier, the first step was actually retention and then to engagement. So, and it's a common stat that all of us know that there are about 5 to 7 apps that a user is holding on his phone. And is that, what are these, other than these 5 and 7 apps that are there, what do you do to be in that list, So that's what we're going to be tackling here. We're going to split a few questions over content, over media buying. We're also going to be talking about usual challenges and what's next in this space. We're going to run a little fast because we have limited time. Feel free to ping us post the panel as well, because there's a lot of insights that we have to share. So Ninad, I'll start with you. How would you define app engagement?
I think like you rightly identified, Kavita, to begin with, that the first problem to solve is for retention. If you sort of feature and show value to your consumers in the first 3 to 7 days of your life cycle of the users getting to know your app and use your app, and you've got to the aha moment in those first 7 days, engagement is a second problem to solve. To me, engagement is about if you've sort of gone past the 7th day for most people, then it's about making sure that people keep coming back to your app, engage with your app, and use it to the fullest potential that you intend for the app to be.
Great. I think that's a very valid point there. And then, since we are touching on content as the first point, my question next is to Vedanarayan, is talking about content versus commerce. A lot of the e-commerce guys do stay on our app, on our phone, right? Like we would have a Flipkart or an Amazon. But with you, it's so heavy on the content front, What have you seen working in app engagement?
So as far as Simplilearn is concerned, we're a very unique business, right? We are in a sunrise category, which is online certifications, online education, which is certainly not mainstream, which is certainly not glamorous. So here, to expect a user to retain an app which is upwards of 10 MB in size on their Android phone, which is extremely short in space, is unrealistic. So inherently in a category such as ours, we're not like online cab booking or even online shopping, where repeat engagements for users are inherently very high. So here our users, our learners, typically repeat engage with us once in 16 to 18 months. So how do you incentivize users to retain your app on their phone after their transaction is done? So currently our app is used primarily for learning delivery alone, not even for commerce. It's primarily for learning delivery. So the answer which we came up with was obviously content. So what we've done is we've benchmarked against our aspirational North Star is obviously LinkedIn Pulse. So how can we build an app which provides relevant content to the user for the entire time window between two learning cycles? So that's been the answer which we've come up with for promoting user engagement.
So do you see the content actually working in that segment, or is there a longer cycle when it comes to engagement versus a short-term cycle when it comes to a glamorous app like shopping?
So for us, the only way forward is, let me say, our app engagement, our uninstall rates are almost 90%. So our app is used primarily for learning. So users typically, after they transact on the site, they download our app and they use it for learning. And this learning process happens for anywhere from 45 to 60 days, after which there is almost a 90% uninstall rate. So the only way from here is up, right? So all of the curated content plays we have helped reduce this 90% number to something which is like a 60% now. So obviously a lot of improvement is yet to be made.
I think there was a very interesting thing that you mentioned, which is knowing your app category in which you fall, and then benchmark with the right people, starts with setting the right expectation. in terms of what can you look forward to, etc., and then devices strategy. I think that was very interesting.
Content is always my favorite topic as well, and we can talk about it all day. But moving on to you, Adil, we were talking about, the product development versus content. So just to play the devil's advocate here, what would you say? Does content distract you from the real product developments, or what do you propose to balance this?
The type of product we're trying to sell and the type of engagement we're trying to have makes a difference. So at Bank Bazaar, we're providing a transaction engine wherein you can access any financial product, be it banking and insurance or savings or investment product. Now, as a young company, right, there's only a certain number of things one can do. And I think given that our vision is paperless finance, saying how do you use Aadhaar, how do you use net banking and deliver instant finance, the bulk of investment goes around the transaction engine. Now, what I wouldn't advocate, and I think at the end, data is our only companion, is to make the app fully content-based. Yes, we can serve you personal finance content, but you don't come to us to read the news. You come to us because you want to consume a financial product instantly in the comfort of your home, in the privacy of your house without having to run around. So I think content needs to be delivered in a customized fashion, like was pointed out earlier, which adds value to the core transaction engine. Another thing is that at the end of the day, everyone has a subjective view. The only way to figure out who is right is an A/B test. So we have a lot of views wherein the SOP is not built out. We need to get from where we are to a cohort which is more sticky, right? A retention which is more sticky, but a transaction cohort which is getting stickier and stickier. And at the end of the day, I think we're running a bunch of experiments with data as our companion to help us move forward.
So before our session, we heard Anil Shetty talk about happiness, and it's in my opinion that we also look for resonance. Resonance also gives us happiness, right? If you can find resonance in some point. So would you say that your app finds, if you are a transactional app, it finds resonance based on only product improvements as 80 to 90% of the activity, or some part of content also finds resonance to drive that transaction?
I think content is relevant, but it has to be customized and tied to the particular user, right? So depending on who I am, what product I had last consumed, what is the kind of insight that can be delivered using content. So let's say I've taken a home loan. If I've not taken life insurance, I'm putting my family at risk, right? Wherein if I die, literally, they're in a very, very bad spot. So understanding who I am in very surgical fashion, serving me the content which is relevant, rather than converting all of my app experience into a personal news site, right? So I think there is relevance, but the relevance is not as trivial as just pushing content, but building the analytics around it and figuring out, see, at the end of the day, right, as an Amazon invested company, what we're measuring is, are our cohorts getting stickier? So month 1, month 2, month 3, right? If my transaction cohort is getting stickier, I am engaging my users on my app more. So what tools do I have and what experiments can I run to actually get there is what we're trying to figure out.
I think A/B testing part is critical, and it's not a glamorous part also. And a lot of organizations tend to short circuit A/B testing at times, because and it's the fact that it should be more continuous. It never really finishes, A/B testing. I think it's A to Z testing now. It's not really A and B. You would test a C and a D and a E as well, I think. So moving to Abhishek from Microsoft, where he's actually helping startups at a very early stage in setting up. How would you define a growth hack? And I'm using this word very loosely. It's not a favorite word with me, but I use it because everybody talks about it, growth hack. For app engagement, for an upcoming app-based service. This is like at a seed stage or at a pre-wireframe stage.
Yep. So it makes a lot of sense for anyone of us who's starting with a new app to understand whom do we cater with this app to, understand what the user actually expects out of this app. And very important stuff is we also need to understand our competition, because before you start, say, a new service like Facebook, you got to know what Facebook is, and you got to have a clear-cut differentiator between what your app can do, what Facebook cannot do. Otherwise, it puts you in a very risky spot. So a lot of startups, you probably, while you meet investors, this is what they look at. How much of research have you done across different ideas. Is it going to be a hit in a particular market? What kind of market segment are you targeting? Doing all this research much earlier before you just start building on your idea is probably a good way to move forward.
So I'm going to pose the question to Vedanarayan here, is that did you actually have engagement ideas in your head when you started with Simplilearn? Like how are you going to retain and engage users?
Absolutely. So for us, as far as our app ambitions are concerned, they were not sky high to begin with, right? So we were very clear that we're not expecting commerce to happen via the app. Nobody's going to buy an online course for 20,000 rupees just through the mobile form factor alone. Nor are we looking to spend money to drive app downloads. Our ambitions and our hope for the app is it gives us a captive marketing channel which we can tap into at any point in time, and we want to make sure that the channel does not get eroded. So our learners who come through our ranks, they download the app, and we lose all of that learners over the next subsequent 2 or 3 months because they find no value in the app after their learning process is done. We want to basically bridge that divide. That's our ambition.
So you're basically non-transactional in that space. Absolutely. A complete content delivery that happens. And that, now when we're talking, one is the content versus commerce discussion, which is completely based on the DNA of your product or service. But the other discussion also hovers around the cost of acquisition, which we again discussed, and that's a key challenge when it comes to a B2C app. Let's say BankBazaar would qualify as a B2C app there. So how can a business with a limited, and this my question is for Adil really, and please guys feel free to pipe in, we are doing well on the time. So a key challenge is that, you know, how does a business with a limited ad budget, and I'm sure a lot of founders will want to know this, hack into this issue of ad-infused installs versus organic?
Right. For all the entrepreneurs in the room, the world of 2016 and 2017 is very different from 13 and 14. So those years, it was all about hyper growth, right? That was the key word. Today, the key word is unit economics. Can you make more in terms of revenue per customer than you spend as marketing cost to acquire the customer? I'm focusing on marketing cost because for most digital businesses, that's a bulk of the cost in addition to what we pay as salaries. Now, the interesting thing is to build this out profitably, right? I think there are 3 things for a startup with limited amount of money that one should be focused on. And even for, I think, a larger company, it makes a lot of sense in terms of using these 3 strategies as far as unit economics goes. So one is driving direct downloads, right? There's nothing which replaces word of mouth, referrals, the fact that people love the app and tell their friends about it or discover it on the App Store. So really focusing not so much on paid download, but seeing what can be done directly. The second is cross-sell. You have one consumer on the site. In BankBazaar, we have 11 products around banking, around insurance, around savings and investments. How can we get the cohort stickier and stickier and stickier? So the same consumers consuming multiple products, but the acquisition cost was paid only once. And the third is conversion. For the number of app downloads we get, how many people end up transacting, and how do we make the experience enough value for the consumer that that download to consumption ratio keeps increasing. So I think these are the 3 strategies we focus on.
I think there's also a case to be made about organic sort of downloads versus sort of incentivized or paid downloads. The quality of users that you will acquire through an organic download or through a word of mouth will be way, way higher, and you'll see a much higher engagement and retention with those crowds. There's nothing wrong with sort of acquiring users through a paid channel as well. They're great for running A/B tests if you want to just run, like, drive 100 installs to see, how your app is doing. But as long as you're getting quality traffic, I think it's a great tool for experimental to find your product market fit if you're a new app. But at the end of the day, you have to measure quality and retention, like Adil was mentioning.
One thing which we've always focused on is app downloads and installs is basically a byproduct. It's never an objective for us, right? So whenever you focus on building your brand and whenever you're having marketing campaigns which are doing a very good job of talking about your brand value propositions, you would see that even for us, right, when we're not even remotely interested in getting commerce through the app, we've seen app installs actually go up. So it's always a byproduct.
Yeah. I think the bigger picture approach is much better rather than doing that short-term bursts of ad buys to fulfill some random KPI. I completely agree on that one. So coming back to Vedanarayan itself, we discussed a little bit about the mind space, which we're talking a lot about, how you're being in that 5 to 7 apps. versus actual phone space, and that being, that being a concern for some category of users already. What helps grow app engagement in that stage? Let's say you are really battling for phone space. Is that a big concern? If yes, how do you tackle that?
Absolutely. So you've got to make sure that one is your app is as light as possible. So if you're an Android app, try to make sure you're sub 6 MB or so. So anything beyond 6 MB is really heavy for Android. That's obviously one. The second thing is you've got to make sure that the users find a natural way to come to your app or to gravitate towards your app as often as possible, at least once in 2 days. So you've got to give them a reason to do it. So if you're an Ola or an Uber, people naturally gravitate towards you. If you're not, you've got to find a way to pull users towards your app. Otherwise, your app is going to disappear from their phones. So how do you do that? So the answer again comes down to the same thing. So it sounds cliched, but it's true. Curated content is the answer.
Okay. That's a tough one. We work a lot personally at WebSpiders also on content, and it's not the easiest nut to crack. But when you say 6 MB, is that like a thumb rule for everybody to follow? Then another follow-on then is that when you are a content app, how do you live within that 6 MB control?
I know it's a difficult one. So if you're a content app, I would imagine, so maybe you can push it up slightly upwards. The 6 MB is based on some random sampling which I've done, plus my own self-reference criteria. So anything above 6 MB, and if I don't have a reason to look at the app for more than at least once in 2 days, I tend to uninstall it pretty fast.
Okay, okay, fair enough. And I think, Ninad, you had something to add to
No,
that.
I was actually just curious that, when you talk about, content, how do you imagine apps that actually cannot sort of curate content and they don't want to lose focus, from their core value proposition and mislead people to think about that, this is a content app. How do you sort of juggle between that to try and keep the users engaged? I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
I mean, for us, it's a pretty clear dividing line because our objectives on the app itself are fairly different, right? So we just want to make sure that of the learners who download the app, we keep them as engaged as possible in the intervening time window between learning cycles. So our objectives for the app are very clear. So if I were, say, heading marketing for a company which were in, say, a different category, let's say an e-com category, the challenge there is different because Flipkart obviously doesn't have the kind of repeat engagement levels which, say, an Uber or an Ola has. Users probably transact there once or twice a month. So would users retain an app? If you could just going to transact once or twice a month, you might as well get it done off the site. So there, the challenge is a lot trickier. So there it can't just be content, but curated offers as well, or curated or customized shopping carts which are made available to users based on their past buying behavior, or exclusive offers which are made available to users. So their content alone would not be the answer. So curated content plus curated offers, if that's possible.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I asked that question to, to try and get to a similar thought that I had, that yes, you have to be contextual. I think you alluded to that as well. It could be contextual content, it could be contextual offers, it could be contextual product. And there are the recent products that allow you to do that is, for example, Google's experimenting with instant apps, as we might have heard of. In I/O this year, they launched instant apps to try and sort of experiment. I think the reason why I say experiment also is because I'm not a huge fan, again, having not seen too much about it or not used it myself. But I imagine something which is a one-off transaction. Like, I can imagine like museum apps or parking lot apps and so forth, which I don't really need on my phone all the time. But I go there, say, once a week, once a month, and something like instant apps. So again, identify the category that your apps might fit into. And then devise the right strategy, whether an app only or a web only or an instant app might also be something worth considering when we're talking about sort of app engagement and being on the user's mind share.
It's interesting that you bring up museum apps because I have a folder on my phone which says apps not used frequently, and I have 60 apps in that. So all the museum and the additional apps end up there. And interestingly, we all touched a little bit on analytics, but I think I'll take it to Abhishek to tell us a real-time a use case of where you can use the real-time analytics to help us in engagement.
Yep, absolutely. So one of the key things that makes your whole app successful is the user experience that you give to users. And using analytics to kind of understand your user's activity within the app, to understand, or even to give him contextual, notifications based on his usage of the app and stuff like that, you would need a good framework within your app. So before you actually start building the app, and especially if it's a B2C kind of consumer kind of an app, which is going to scale up like in a big number, you need to have a nice mechanism where you can kind of figure out your end users, their usage patterns, so that you can dynamically kind of trigger notifications or engagement models with those users. Now, for example, when a user, as we heard the panel saying before, first 7 days of your app install is very critical, right? So what do we do to ensure that the app user gets back to the app within the first 7 days of install? We probably can track whether he has logged in the app or he's just skipped the login screen. If he skips the login screen, most of the times we can't give him a custom experience because we don't know about him. If he does not log in, probably you can have a different workflow of engagement model or set of notifications that goes to him, which kind of tells him about a few features which he's not currently using because he's not logged in, which kind of gets him to log in. So you have to build this kind of model where you ensure you can't rely on user to kind of get inside the app and then check out all those features. If it's a branded app, it's awesome, people do that. But if it's a new app, you're going to convey these values based on those timings. So,
right, guys, we are on a clock now. And so quick, maybe one sentence from everybody as to what's next, starting with Vedanaran on what's next in app engagement.
So app engagement is contextual. So you need to have a horses for courses policy. So it depends on the kind of product you're selling, the kind of category you operate in, what are the natural repeat engagement levels for users in that particular category, and you need to have your objectives wrapped around that context.
Okay. Adil, what would you think?
Using the capability around geolocators, using the capability around phone number authentication, so working with the user and the financial institution to simplify the entire financial process using the capability of the app.
Great. I think, Ninad, you had something interesting to add.
Sure. So I think we already covered sort of context and making apps sort of relevant. Really quickly, experiment with all the tools that are available. We heard push notifications, we heard email, I spoke about instant apps. And lastly, there's another product, even by Google, which is sort of adding engagement ads, which will basically get people into your app back again when they're actually trying to do something contextual in Google. So experiment with tools that are available and run a lot of experiments to find the right tool for you.
What is our thoughts on bots?
Okay. There's a new thing, and there's a lot of fight. People say about in the future.
I hate them, by the way. It's like when I'm like on Facebook and if I've pinged a page and I get an immediate response, I'm just not interested. It doesn't feel good. So how would somebody tackle that?
With the bots?
Yeah.
Okay. So bots is a very interesting engagement model that you can build on. Not every time, just like Kavita said, she has like 60 apps in the list, non-used apps in the list. So many times this happens that when you're using multiple devices, which generally we do at home, it might be a work device, it might be a home device, it might be an app, a tablet, and stuff like that. So you can always have a bot using which people can interact. And one of the best examples here is an app called as Yellow Messenger. You can kind of ask for nearby restaurants or Chinese restaurants and stuff, and it kind of tells you back. Now, for such kind of basic querying stuff, you probably need not have an app, and or even for that level of engagement, you can do it away with the bots. Bots can be available over Facebook, your WhatsApp, and so on. So you can just query that question, and it's pretty contextual to you. So it's your data coming back to you, not to your different users. That's something pretty interesting. And then you can drive downloads of your apps through the bot as well, because if you need something more than that, like reservation and stuff, probably next level is let him download the app and then book this particular table. So there are a lot of companies looking into the bot to kind of help them grow bigger.
Great. So since we've been pinged 3 or 4 times, we are going to take leave from everybody. So if you guys are looking for any further insights on a B2B app, on a B2C app, on productivity apps, or even at a stage where you're building apps, the panel has all the insights that they can share probably post the panel session as well. So you can come and find us later. And thank you so much for having us here. And over to you.
Thank you, team. Thank you. Please bring a good round of applause.